Welcome to this special edition of the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. I'm Nikki Fiacco, the host of the AmeriCorps Connections podcast. I'm excited to share a special partnership with 250 and Beyond, Our American Story, to share a series of short stories from AmeriCorps alums about what service looks like in their communities today. These voices help amplify the spirit of service and remind us that across this country, people continue to show up for one another each and every day. So what is 250 and Beyond? 250 and Beyond, Our American Story is a national initiative dedicated to making service to others visible and valued in all its forms. By reflecting on our nation's history and elevating stories today to inspire the future, we aim to realize a vision of a nation united through service. Led by a coalition of leading service organizations, 250 and Beyond is a call to action, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and inspiring the future, helping us respect our differences and transcend our divisions. For all of those national service and AmeriCorps members out there, let's keep getting things done. I hope you enjoyed this series. Najla, thank you so much for joining the AmeriCorps Connections podcast for this special 250 co-branded 250 and Beyond podcast series, and where we're highlighting AmeriCorps alums and not just your service year, but what you do, how you serve, continue to serve and volunteer in your community. So we're very curious to know where you are. Tell us a little bit about your AmeriCorps service and how you're still giving back and getting things done. So we'll start. Take it away.
Brilliant. Thank you. I am excited to have this discussion. I think AmeriCorps and the service programs are so integral to growing up in the United States and understanding how the United States works and how the world works. And it's important to support people to learn other things. It makes a huge difference, not just in the lives of the participants, but also the people they work with. And my children have learned things because of the program. And the people I work with have learned things because of the program. I think it is a monumental gift for so many different reasons. My personal experience was I was in the Veteran Leader Corps with the AmeriCorps program in 2012 and 2013. And at the time, I was the spouse of an active duty military service member. I had 3 young kids and a middle schooler, which to me wasn't a young kid because the other 3 were so much younger. In true military fashion, we moved to Washington State. I had to leave my position teaching from our previous assignment, had to get the family resettled into Washington State, had to learn where the grocery store was, how to get to base, all of those coordination things that spouses want to do every time you move. I had worked with volunteering with the MWR programs and with some of the contract positions that we did when we were overseas in Europe. One of the things that I worked with for a long time was suicide prevention. I had done that before I married my husband as a service member, but as suicide became a more consistent topic in the military circles, my expertise and work on that and my volunteer work with that became more important. That was how I got coordinated with the Veteran Leader Corps program through AmeriCorps. And I ended up coordinating with some of the folks at MWR and learned about a group called Rally Point 6 that was in Lakewood, Washington, that was working on supporting veterans in their transition, leaving the military and going back to civilian life. And that is a super volatile time for veterans and for their family members because it's just such a huge change. You go from a very regulated, very detailed kind of plan to having to build a plan on your own and figuring things out in a different way than you did when you were active duty. I worked with this program and did a lot of coordination with our transitioning service members. And this became the framework for the USO Pathfinder Transitions Program, which is a program that the USO still does to this time. So because I've done that coordination, we have continued to move around. We had the great idea that once we retired from the military, we'd stop moving around and we'd hang out for a while. But then we had the opportunity to go work in Europe. So we ended up leaving Washington and going to work in Europe. And then we came back to be with family in 2020 and ended up landing in North Carolina. Since then, I have moved to Indiana, but I continue to work and volunteer in Washington State. But the thing that I've learned is no matter where you are, if you have this training and this coordination, you're going to run into people who need to know things that you know. So I've been able to work with veterans and family members and do advocacy and healthcare access and mental health care access in Europe, in North Carolina, in Washington, and even here in Indiana with some of the people I grew up with who are now working for various city governments and need help learning to coordinate with the VA, or how do I help this veteran who wants to buy a house? Well, do they have VA benefits? All of those things that we've learned to coordinate.
So you're taking your experience, your lived experience, and you're not only working in an organization that serves veterans, you're also volunteering because of your lived experience and everything that you've learned along the way in your training. You're kind of like advocating. You're like a walking advocate for veterans.
Yeah, and it's not just for veterans, because the family members also have particular needs that they need. Because my kids didn't stay in the same place for high school and grade school, so they have a different framework for coordination than other people's kids. One of the things that I've been very glad to do is to help coordinate with Guard and Reserve spouses when their service member deploys with an active duty component, because the coordination that you have on base to support families is very different than the Guard and Reserve has. So if you're living on base and your spouse is deployed and you need help with your on-base housing, there's help for that. But if you're in Indiana and your spouse is deployed and a tree comes through your roof, nobody from the military is going to call and say, hey, do you need help with this?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we found through just happening to be at the right place at the right time that there needed to be some support or some contact point for folks who were attached, who were Guard and Reserve, who were attached for active duty for whatever time period to support their families. And I really found that that was one of the places that I was really able to shine and to be helpful to spouses and to kids, to find them back up and help for those moments where your partner would normally back you up, but they're not available right now.
That makes so much sense. Wow. What an amazing service, I guess I want to say, but support, I guess, is a better way of that. So you have coordinated those kinds of help services in Indiana, like in your area?
In the community. I did some in North Carolina and I did some also in Indiana. And really what it boils down to is making sure that the command structure is aware that there is support. The other part of that is spouses who are not active all the time in the military community don't know when there's support and that they can come and ask for assistance and have access to MWR funds, or you need help with figuring out active duty or access to TRICARE or those kinds of things. We lived those things. That's what we did every day, all the time. So with those experiences, we were able to help get people pointed in the right direction in order to get them to the place they needed to go to prepare for when their spouse came back.
Got you. Can you just, for folks like myself that don't know all the acronyms, what is NWR?
MWR is the morale and welfare, morale, and recreation. And it is one of the programs that supports community participation for the military community.
Gotcha. So talk to us a little bit about, so this series, the 250 and Beyond, and it's really focusing on volunteering and service. When we founded this country, good, bad, all the stuff, really we were volunteering, we were serving our communities. And so that was the first 250 years of this country. We want to do it better 250 years down the road. So talk to me a little bit about like how maybe volunteering and service has changed throughout your life. One of the pivotal things for me that I always say is that I didn't even really know that I was volunteering when I was coaching my kids in soccer, right? Until I could put it on my AmeriCorps timesheet as volunteer work. I just thought, I know a little something about soccer and I have to be here anyway, so I may as well coach. But that my volunteerism shifted from before I had kids to when I have kids, and now my adult children just kind of grew up volunteering. So tell us a little bit about like how your service and volunteerism has changed over the years, and maybe how you see a difference in volunteering now.
I think that's such a great question because a lot of times, a lot of volunteer work goes being somewhat dismissed because it's stuff that needs to get done that people just go, it's stuff that needs to get done. And people just kind of go, well, I'll get it done, not realizing the import that that has. Some of the things that we did when I was doing AmeriCorps are things that I had done, community coordination, working at food banks, that kind of thing. But I was able to include some of our military community members in things that I was doing because of my AmeriCorps time that it in earnest had not occurred to me to do. One of the things that I regularly did with my family, and then when I became a mother, was to work at the food pantry. And you get a lot of different people coming and going, and it's such a good way to understand community differently.
Totally. That's such a great example.
So I had always worked at our local area, and it was St. Leo's when we were in Washington State. And I was talking with some of the folks that I was doing some of my vet corps coordination with, and said, well, this is what I'm going to be doing on Wednesday. And of course, because they are who they are and they are encouraging and thoughtful and kind, do you need extra hands? Yes, always. We need extra hands. So we ended up getting a contingency of folks from our base that would come and do community coordination and community service to work at the food banks on a monthly basis. And we had some folks, people think that if you're in the military, you have a very solid income, and it's just not the case. Our lower enlisted family members don't make a ton of money, and they are able to take advantage of programs like WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, so that they are able to provide affordable foods for their families. Because of the WIC conversation that we had with our coordination for our monthly food bank, we recognized that there was some need on base for folks that didn't have cars and didn't have access to come into town to get resources. And we started coordinating on base to have access to a food bank on base as well. And that was a lovely program that supported folks that were in tough straits and needed a little extra backup. And it was not just food, but also diapers or formula or access to the things that when you move, when you land at your new assignment, maybe it's 3 in the morning and nothing's open, but we had access to these kinds of things to try and help alleviate some of those difficulties that people experience in their comings and goings.
This is such a specific volunteer need for a specific group of individuals that, quite frankly, keep our country protected, keep us protected. I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I'm learning so much, and I'm engaged to a Marine, and I've learned a heck of a lot more than I ever thought I would need to know about military and service. And I definitely want to have a longer conversation with you because I have so many questions. But it's just so touching to hear that our service members, I mean, there's two parts of that. It's horrible to hear that they can't even afford food off of the salary that they're given, number one. And then also it's endearing to know that there is a community. And it sounds like it's really about making sure that all the commands and all the people, and I don't know all the language, but know that these services are available. So as we start to wrap, what are some ways that you ensure in your current community or the other communities that you serve that folks know that these services are available? I feel like you'd have to walk around with a billboard and walk through the neighborhoods and be like, hey, do you know this?
Yeah, you know what? Part of the difficulty I think that we experience with this group of people is there is a desire to serve that overwhelms the recognition of the need of service. So we have veterans that have not accessed their VA benefits because they have the idea that if they access those benefits, that they won't be available for someone else.
Wow.
But that's not how the program works. So when I explain, and this has been tremendously effective with a lot of the veterans that we coordinate with, when we explain to the veterans, when you show up at the VA and you get access to the things that you need, it allows them to report that coordination so they can recognize that there are still people that don't have access to their benefits that have a need. So that coordination, your coordination, frees up the conversation and the capacity for more veterans to be able to come and access these services. And the VA has worked very, 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 very hard to increase access and to increase access in a way that is fine-tuned to the needs of the people. So the support for women veterans has grown exponentially in the time that I've been working with the veterans community. So much so that now you are able to access prenatal care as a veteran, even if you're not active duty.
Mm.
And some women veterans don't know that that's an option.
Yeah.
The suicide prevention program has stepped up immensely in the past 20 years. And there continues to be work to be done. There continues to be work to be done. But the studies and the dedication of the folks that we've worked with for 20 years show that being an asset in the community supports the healthcare and the mental health care of all of the veterans. So it's not just veterans, but interacting with their community and their family membership is supportive of the veterans. And that has been such an important development in coordination with the VA, which has developed this new or renewed idea of community to try and make sure that the conversations aren't just had at the VA, but are had in the community.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like my head is just like, we need everybody to know this. You know,
Yes, we do need everybody to know this.
and we talk about this pandemic of isolation and not having purpose. There's an issue with connectedness ever since the pandemic, right? And people started just being isolated. And I feel like it's double that for our service members, like you said, who come from a very structured lifestyle into this, like, good luck with that sort of thing.
Right.
I hate to liken it to the prison system where they're like, here's a bus, here's a bus ticket, figure it out,
Yeah.
sort of thing. And it's
Yeah.
just like, anyways,
Once upon a time, it really was, you got home and you got on a bus and you left. But it hasn't been that way for quite a while. These transition programs are tremendously helpful, and people have access to information that previous generations did not have access to. And it's a lot of information to process as you're trying to figure out where to move, can you get a job, how to get your family there, all of those things. So those first 18 to 24 months post-military service are so important for community to make itself known to the people coming in. And it just makes a huge difference all around.
Yeah. I feel like we go on forever, which folks we're going to all come back together, and all the folks from 9 Line, we're going to have hopefully a podcast with the 4 of us later on in May or June or something when I can wrangle you all together. But this was so great. Thank you so much for jumping on and joining. I know we rescheduled this like 3 times, so I'm glad we could come together.
No, thank you for your patience and your kindness, and let me know if there's something helpful I can do in the meantime.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything that you want to say before we close out?
AmeriCorps afforded me the ability to not just enter into community with intent, but also to grow the community. And my kids were part of that, and my faith group was part of that, and my military community was part of that. And it is such an important stitch in the fabric of who we are as a nation that I cannot articulate the import of these programs enough.
That's such a great way to end. Thank you so much. And folks,
Thank you.
We'll be back with another guest, another alum sometime soon. So keep watching.
Thank you.